all know Captain Robert Scott as one of the big anti-heroes of the heroic age of polar exploration at the early 1900s. He went to the South Pole but discovered that Amundsen had just beat him to it. How sad. But before that, that was in 1912. In 1901, Scott had already started his polar career on this ship behind me here in Dundee in Scotland called the Discovery. For me, as with my interest in polar exploration and my huge library of antiquarian books on the history of polar exploration, visiting this ship is a very special moment when polar exploration comes to life. The ship was built here in Dundee because Dundee had a great history of building whaling ships, and they knew the Antarctic circumstances. There were not many wooden ships still being built at the time, and Dundee had a special leg up in its tender to build this ship. It was built with 10 different kinds of wood, even though most ships were built of steel at that time, because wood was better able to bend and to be flexible under the pressure of the Arctic ice, Antarctic ice in this case. Scott set sail in 1901. The goal of the expedition was actually scientific. They went out to discover new animals. They were the first to find a colony of emperor penguins. They found all sorts of unknown sea animals. They studied magnetism. It was really a voyage of investigation. It ended up being much longer than they had anticipated. The ship, of course, got stuck in the ice in the Antarctic for 2 winters. There were 48 men on this tiny ship behind me. It's impossible to imagine what life must have been like for these men in such close quarters for so long, and the uncertainty of whether they would actually survive. The ship did eventually, in 1904, manage to free itself from the Antarctic ice and to make way back to England. The ship had many other voyages after that, including other polar expeditions, and in 1986 it came home, as it were, to Dundee, where it is now on Discovery Point. Anyone could visit it, and it's right next to the new Museum for Scottish Design, the V&A Dundee, which is being built right behind it. So, standing here on the deck of the Discovery, the ship with which Captain Scott sailed to the Antarctic in 1901, I'm talking to Tara Wainwright, who is the marketing manager of the V&A in Dundee, which, as you can see behind us, is under construction. What is this museum going to be about, Tara?
So V&A Dundee will be the very first design museum in Scotland. So we are coming into being to tell the amazing story of Scottish design to the world. We're going to tell international audiences about Scottish design and tell Scottish audiences about international design.
The building, could you tell us something about the architecture? Kengo Kuma, Japanese architect?
Yeah, so Kuma is our architect, and he is also currently designing the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Stadium. So it's a really big deal for us to have such a wonderful architect behind this new design museum. But it was always very important to us that our new home would be an object of design in its own right. And we really hope that people will come from around the world to see this building because it is so magnificent.
I must admit, 300 years of Scottish design in this new museum. There's not really much that comes to mind right away. Sorry.
That's fine, and that's the reason that we're coming into being, so don't worry. A lot of people are the same. Not many people know about Scottish design or the impact that Scots have had on the world of design.
Mm-hmm. Can you give me an example?
Of course. So our star object is going to be a Charles Rennie Mackintosh oak tea room. And that was installed in Glasgow originally last century, and then taken and put into storage in the 1970s, and we are currently working with Glasgow Life to restore it to its former glory, and then it will come back to life in the galleries behind us.
Scottish design, that's the theme of today. I'm here in the storage of the Scottish brand Gibson and Birkbeck.
Yep.
And this is Katie Gibson,
Yes.
Scottish designer. And you make beautiful shirts, Katie. And I've bought 4 of your shirts.
Thank you so much.
I couldn't control myself.
And for driving across country to find us in the middle of nowhere as well. I really appreciate it.
It was a lovely drive in beautiful Scotland.
Thank you.
So you design shirts that are printed in Britain, sewn in Portugal, but with Scottish designs. What are the designs about? What do you create?
Well, I just take inspiration from what's around us, really. We're lucky that we live in a beautiful rural area, and there's lots of inspiration in all the nature, animals, creatures, whether it's, foliage, flora, fauna.
You're wearing grasshoppers at the moment.
I'm wearing grasshoppers. Anything that lands on my desk is also featured. We've got beetles.
Do you export also?
Yeah, we do. I mean, mostly our sales are within the UK, but we've just built a new website, so we're now shipping overseas. And because I sell to other retailers and things as well, we've got a handful of stockists in sort of Central Europe, one in the States, and a few all over the place. So we're gradually getting out there.
Do you feel like you're part of a world of Scottish design, or are Scottish designers one-offs?
No, I think there is a good community within Scottish designers. In this area specifically where we're based, I don't have a kind of good network, but I know certainly in Dundee or in Glasgow or in Edinburgh, where there are art schools and things like that, there certainly is a good hub of creatives that come together for shows and events and pop-up shops and that kind of thing.
Yes, this is what you think it is. This very rural countryside cottage that we rented in Scotland has a hot tub. And I thought, oh, Jesus, a hot tub. Why? But it was here, so I thought we better go in it. As Bubty said, we paid for it, we better use it. So here we are in the hot tub, which, to tell you the truth, is actually delicious. Here in our,
I hate to admit it.
It's awful, I know. We're here in our lovely little stone cottage, which you can see behind me. And I'll try and fight my way up and turn around so that you can see some of the Scottish landscape behind us. And, well, I have to admit, it's definitely an experience, and actually a very pleasant experience.
But it came with all kinds of rules, didn't it?
Oh yeah, there were lots of rules. You were not supposed to, no sex, drugs, and rock and roll, as the caretaker said. And of course we're supposed to wear our bathing suit. I'm wearing the birthday suit that I was born in, so I think that's a suit too. And no drink, and no using the hot tub after darkness. But the caretaker very kindly said that's actually when it's most fun. So, but I did have to sign a disclaimer. I don't know exactly what was in the disclaimer.
No sex on the premises.
No on the premises. Oops, sorry. Bye. When I was about to leave for vacation in Scotland, somebody said to me, you know what a definition of a storm is in Scotland? When the trash cans blow faster down the street that you can walk. No surprise then that wind energy is a big thing in Scotland, but little did I expect to run across all the parts of wind turbines lying here in the harbour of Inverness. It's like a weird sort of moon landscape. You see the bridge and you see the boats. This is where the dolphin trips also leave from. But you also see all these huge, colossal, enormous parts of wind turbines lying here waiting for I don't know what. Maybe they're waiting to be taken out to the countryside and installed as turbines. I have seen a number of signs in the countryside, people saying no to wind farms. So I was relieved to see that wind farms and the impact they have on the landscape is apparently just as big an issue here as it is in the Netherlands. Neil Ross is the head of the community growth team, is that right, Neil?
That's correct.
At the Highlands and Islands Enterprise, which is an organization from the Scottish Government which receives £60 million a year to support rural life, basically. Neil, what do you do with that money?
We help businesses and social enterprises and communities to thrive, to grow economically and socially. So High's got not just economic development powers, but it's also got community development powers.
And you spend that money on things as diverse as renewable energy initiatives, but also bike shops, creative industries.
So
that's a broad palette. How do you organize that?
It's a really broad palette. We have an operating plan and we prioritise our resources.
And what about farming? A lot of Scotland's land is poor land. You can really only graze sheep on it. Are there still enough farmers in rural Scotland?
There's a particular kind of land tenure in Scotland called crofting, and that is a kind of low intensity, high nature value farming. And it's got a unique form of land tenure which protects the rights of the tenant of the land and the rights of the landowner. And that has been proven over the years to be a really great way of anchoring people in community.
What is Brexit going to mean for rural Scotland?
It's bad for the economy. There are some people that are concerned that in outside of Europe we might not be able to put the same gross amount of money into supporting these people, and that may cause some of them to retract from that activity.
Neil Ross, thank you very much for these reflections on the future of rural Scotland.
Thank you.